Hello AI Workshop community, welcome to this introduction video. In this video I'm going to quickly give you an introduction to what automation is, what n8n is, and how that fits into this ecosystem of automation and the AI tools that are kind of moving into space and what the future looks like. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what automation is. So automation refers to basically using any kind of a technology or any kind of tool to perform tasks with minimal human intervention. That's kind of the overall gist of what automation is. And the goal of automation is to save time, reduce errors, and really kind of increase efficiency, because if you're doing repetitive works, that's where automation comes in to remove those repetitive tasks and make it predictable, right? So automation could be used in business, in marketing, in customer support, and pretty much in every single industry nowadays because of these AI tools that are becoming more and more powerful. So there are two types of automations. There's the process automation and then there's a task automation. Process automation basically refers to automating any kind of complex workflow. Like for example, invoice generation would be a good example of what a complex workflow might look like. But on top of that, now with these AI tools that are being introduced in the market, you can make extremely complex automation. And again, we will go through that in the next few videos in the next classrooms that you will have access to. And then there's also the task automation, which means this will be automating simple and repeatable tasks, right? So for example, sending a follow-up email, chatting with customer support, all of this is something that can be very easily repeatable and therefore very easily automated. So that's kind of the overview of what the concepts of automations are and what that space is. So there has been a huge, obviously, influx of no-code and low-code tools that have come into this space because of AI tools, right? So no-code tools or low-code tools like n8n really empowers users that previously didn't have technical knowledge to really get involved and build workflows because of the fact that these user interface for these tools have become extremely powerful, where now you don't need to have any background in coding, where before, in order for you to build these automation using these technical tools, you needed to know how to code. Otherwise, there was no way for you to be able to jump in and create these automations or workflows yourself. So these introduction of these low-code and no-code tools that have been coming in the market lately because of AI, that has really removed this barrier to enter in this space. And that's what is extremely exciting as we move forward in the future. So what these no-code and low-code tools do, they really speed up development, and like I mentioned, it kind of removes that gap between the technical and non-technical users. Where before it was very difficult for non-technical and technical users to collaborate, but now thanks to these great tools, you can actually collaborate with developers, with technical people, because you have a very low barrier to entry. So that's where we kind of come to n8n, and that's where the focus of this community is. So n8n is an extremely powerful tool. It is a no-code automation tool, but there's obviously a lot of customization options. So if you are good at coding, or if you know coding already, you can even build more complex tools, right? But the barrier to entry to building these automation tools has completely been removed because of the fact that tools like n8n are in the market. And in my opinion, n8n is the best tool when it comes to building powerful automations and building powerful AI agents specifically, because of the fact that their focus is more shifting towards AI tools and building AI agents, and they're releasing really great tools on top of their existing integrations that they have to make it really, really powerful. So one of the biggest features, in my opinion, that n8n has compared to other tools that are out in the market is the fact that you can actually self-host all of this. Self-hosting gives you a huge advantage when it comes to the privacy of your data, right? Because a lot of companies, a lot of individuals are very hesitant to share their data with third-party APIs or third-party apps. Therefore, the ability to self-host or cloud host n8n and your instances really gives you that peace of mind and full control over your data and therefore privacy. So that's kind of a huge benefit there. And then also on top of that, n8n is also extremely flexible, which means that it has existing native integration with other apps, but on top of that, it gives you also access to tools that you can connect to third-party apps that it doesn't have integration with. And again, we'll talk about that in the other classrooms that you can utilize, how you can utilize this to be able to build these extremely powerful AI agents or these workflows. Another biggest thing, in my opinion, is the cost. When it comes to these no-code or low-code tools that are out there in the market, and Zapier, Make.com are kind of in the same space, and there's other tools as well, but these are kind of the most popular ones. When it comes to cost, honestly, none of these tools are even close to n8n. So tools like Zapier and Make.com, they actually charge per operation, versus n8n actually charge per workflow. And again, I understand if you're new to this, this might not make any sense to you, but just to show you kind of the difference. And again, these charts and this data is taken directly from n8n's blog, and I have this link that I'll put in the description below, so that way you can check out and read the whole blog if you want, because they go really do a good job of explaining why n8n stands out when it comes to cost. Even if you're using their cloud app, it's still extremely cheap. But if you use this as a sub-host option, that becomes even more cheap, right? And like I said, we will explain and explore those things further down. But this was just an idea for you to get an understanding of what this space is and why n8n really stands out compared to the other tools. And also a huge difference between, in my opinion, between n8n and the rest of the tools that are in the market when it comes to the automation space is their AI tools. They have really shifted their focus on AI. I've talked to a few people from the n8n company, and they definitely are moving, and they're understanding that the future of these tools are moving towards building AI agents that's going to be specific to different tasks that will sit on top of these large language models. And that's where we're really going to focus and explore the power of n8n, because the rest of the classrooms are going to be really focused around building these very powerful AI agents to be able to even further create complex workflows and automation that you can utilize in any industry. All right, so that was kind of a quick introduction of the automation space and these different tools. In the next video, I'm going to introduce you to the n8n app, the canvas, how to sign up for the free 14-day trial n8n account, so that way you can get started. And then I'm going to do a quick introduction of how you can start to build your own little automations to be able to get a good understanding before you move on to the rest of the classrooms and the rest of the lessons that I have, these tutorials. So this will be a good foundation for you to understand and get started with n8n. All right, so I'll see you on the next one. Hello again. All right, so in this one, we're going to go ahead and get started with signing up for an account for n8n. I want you to start with just the cloud account for now, because they give you a 14-day trial, and that's going to be a good way for you to get started. Don't worry about self-hosting at this point. If you're new to n8n, I think it's a good way to get started is through their app cloud account, which is very, very simple. So that way you can at least get familiar with the canvas, with workflows, and all that good stuff. So I've put a link below. Click on that. It will take you directly here. You're going to come and click on Get Started. So go ahead and fill your name, a company email, just put your personal email, a password, and the account you're going to be putting, for example, for me, it's going to be aiworkshop.app.n8n.cloud. So this is going to be the URL. So once you do that, click on Try for Free, and then this will log you into the account. And this, you only have to do this once, because next time you come into this URL, it will automatically sign you in and bring you to your workflow. Okay, so once you do that, once you log in, it might ask you a question about, what you're using n8n for. Go ahead and fill that out, and then it will bring you to your dashboard. So this is where you're going to get started after you log in. It might take a couple of seconds for it to get online, but it will tell you when you're online. It will just going to say currently online, and then you can click on the open here. So just a quick introduction here. So the version, we'll take a look at that in a little bit, but this is going to be the latest version, and I will make sure I kind of show you where to update your version, because that's very important, because whenever they're releasing new versions, they're going to be fixing different bugs that might be in the nodes that you're going to be using. So you want to make sure you're running the latest version. Okay, So let's go ahead and click on Open Workspace. Okay, once you do that, you're brought into kind of this workflows homepage. And on the top left-hand corner here, it says 14 days left in your n8n trial. So that's what it's going to look like, which is great because you can use this for 14 days for free. And then if you are okay with using the cloud and you don't want to go towards the self-hosting, again, it's perfectly fine. I think it's about like $28 or something like that. But I will work with them to see if I can get some kind of a discount for this particular community. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, so just to kind of give you a layout. So the workflows. So this is where you're going to be starting to build these different automations, whether it's agents. So n8n refers to all of that as workflows, and that's what I was talking about earlier when it comes to n8n being cheap and compared to these other tools that are out there, is because they will charge you based on the workflow. So your workflow can be extremely complex. You'll be only charged for the workflow. And by the way, that's on the cloud account, not on the self-hosting, because on the self-hosting it's going to be different. So for this particular account, as you can see right now in the center, it says start from scratch. There's credentials. We'll come back to what that is. On the left-hand side, you have the admin panel. So if you click on the admin panel, this will take you to basically the same place as we were before. And if you want to update the version that I mentioned before, because right now if I go back to my workspace here, on the left hand side in the bottom, if there's any update that needs to be done for this particular version that you're using, it will show up right here. So if you click on admin panel, it will take you back to that starting point, and you can click on settings here, and this is where you'll be able to see what version you're running. And they have several. There's like a beta that they have the latest beta and the latest stable. So try to stay on the latest stable because that's always the safe space to be. So you have your time zone. If you have a different time zone, make sure you're selecting your correct time zones. And the bottom, you don't have to worry about this for now. And again, right now this is our trial, so this will show you your plan what you're in. Okay, all right, so let's go back to our dashboard now. So we'll go back to opening it, and let's go ahead and create our first workflow, so that way I can give you an introduction of what those things are. In the bottom here, so the templates and variables and all executions, don't worry about this for now. We'll come back to this at some other point. But let's go ahead and click on start from scratch. So this is going to be the canvas. Basically, this is where you start with building your workflows. But before we do that, I just want to quickly go in the bottom and actually change the theme, because I like their dark theme. It looks a lot better in my opinion. But obviously, if you're using the light theme, if you want to use the light theme, that's fine as well. But the way to change the theme here is you're going to come here on your next to your name. You're going to click on these three dots, go to settings. And this will take you to your personal settings. You'll see your name, your email that you use for this account, and your password if you want to change that. You can always enable the two-factor authentication. I would suggest doing that if you have really sensitive workflows that you're building. But in the bottom right here, the personalization, you click on theme. They have obviously the light theme, that which are currently the default system. But we can click on dark theme. And let's go ahead and save this. And as you can see now, the theme changes. And in my opinion, like I said, this is the way better in my user interface, or it looks a lot better. Okay, so that's good. Now you're going to go back, and this is going to be your canvas again. All right, so a few things to point out here on the top left-hand corner. So this is where you can actually name this workflow. And I highly suggest naming your workflow whenever you're creating a workflow, because that way you don't get lost and you have a good way to organize your workflow. So for example, this time for this one, I'm just going to say test workflow. All right, and you save it, workflow successfully created. So now if we go back to our home, if you click on home, this is the first workflow that you've created, and obviously you will see all of your workflows down here. All right, so the way to get back to your workflow is you're just going to click on it, and it'll take you back to your workflow. The tags right here, so this is where if you have a lot of workflows that you've created, in order for you to organize them, you can actually tag this. Unfortunately, right now, n8n does not have the ability to kind of group workflows together. So the way to do that, so let's say for example, if you're building accounting workflows and you want to be able to separate that for example from your invoicing or from your customer support workflows, then what you could do is just add a tag to it. So for example, for this one, I'm just going to add a tag of AI agents, right? So now this workflow will always have this AI agent tag next to it. So if I go back to my home page, on the right next to the workflow, as you can see right here, it says AI agent. So next time, let's say I have 100 workflows here and I only want to see the workflows that have the AI agent tags, I can click on filter and you can say filter by tags. And as you can see, my AI agent workflow tag shows up there. And when I click on that filter, it will list all of the workflows that are related to that tag. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get rid of that remove filter. Let's go back inside our test workflow. Okay, so on the right hand side here, you can see there's these three dots, and then there's the upgrade, the save, the share, and inactive. So on the three dots, so if you click on this, this will give you several options to download, import another workflow into this. And again, like I said, we will get into this later on. We'll build other complex workflows where then you can actually import that template inside this workflow, and it will bring everything over. But again, like I said, for that, we will talk about that at other videos. And you can always download your workflow as well. So once you build your workflow, you can download it as a JSON file, and then you'll be able to import it or take it with you to another workflow and be able to put that in there as well. You can duplicate this workflow, obviously, and then you can always delete it as well. Make sure you're always saving your workflow. That's a really good habit to have as you move forward and build your workflows. Make sure you're always saving it, because otherwise your progress might get lost if something gets closed without you doing that on purpose. So share, again, for now, we don't have to worry about this for now. We'll come back to this later. Inactive, and again, once we build our workflows, I'm going to explain what this is. So in the center here, we have the editor and the executions. So the executions will come back later on when we actually go through and build a few workflows and try out and test these out. We'll come back and I'll explain what executions are. But you will be on the editor section whenever you're building your workflows. All right, and then on the bottom right here, so the zoom to fit, whenever you're zooming in or zooming out, you can always, if you have, for example, multiple connecting nodes or multiple connecting workflows that you have built, and you want to go back and kind of zoom out and go and see everything together, you can quickly come in here and click on zoom fit, and it will center everything, and it will show all of the nodes or all of the different connecting apps that are inside that workflow. You can obviously always zoom in and zoom out, and then with this one you can go back to and reset the zoom as well. The test workflow button, so this is where once you build the workflow, you can actually test it using this button. And again, we'll go through and actually take a look at how that function works. So you add the first step by either click on the center or right here, right? And again, on the next video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put in your first node and build a very, very simple workflow, so that way you get an understanding. But for this one, again, this is already getting very long, so I just wanted to give you kind of an introduction of the different things that are inside your canvas and how to navigate within your canvas and within your account once you create it. All right, so I will see you on the next one. All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to explore further what n8n nodes are, how the workflows work together, and I'll give you an introduction of how to create your first step and add different nodes together or different apps together and connect them to be able to go further and create different automations, workflows, or AI agents. Before we get started, make sure you have watched the previous videos, because this is kind of a continuation of that. All right, so we're back to our canvas. This is our test workflow as we built in the previous video. So we're going to go ahead and add our first step. So nodes are the building blocks of n8n. You can think of it that way, right? There's three categories of nodes. There's the entry point node, there is the function node, and then there's the exit point node. So there are different types of node in n8n. There's triggers that are basically your entry points. There's actions and apps, which we'll talk about, which are kind of the functions. And then there's nodes that are related to data transformation, to flow, to files, and many, many more advanced nodes, including AI nodes. So the way to add nodes into your canvas or into your workflow is you can click on the middle button right here, or you can come here on the top right hand corner, and as you can see, it says open nodes panel, right? So you can do that or click on this. It will take you to the same place. Okay, so once you do that, it's going to open up. Because this is the first step, it's going to immediately take you to a place where it says what triggers this workflow, because a trigger is the first step that will start your workflow. There's several types of triggers. There's the manual trigger, there's on an app event, there's on schedule, on webhook call, there's on form submission, and again, depending on what you're building, these different triggers will be relevant to your workflow. So for example, if we just want to build a test workflow, we can click on trigger manually, and this will automatically add that node into the center of our canvas. And now we can move this. So you can move a node around by holding it, clicking on it and holding it, and you can move it around. So what this does is basically means that whenever you click the test workflow here, this workflow, the first step or this trigger is going to get initiated. On the top right here, as you can see these three dots, you can click on that. You can test this step from here. You can rename this node. You can deactivate it. You can copy and paste it, or you can delete it. And the shortcut here is also that you can delete this node right from the top right there. So, and on the left hand side, as you can see, this kind of identifies already that this is a trigger node. And if we click on, if we put in another node, you will see that it will always have this little lightning sound, which means that this node is a trigger node. So let's go ahead and get rid of that and add another trigger node. So on the right hand side, again, you can see all these nodes that are existing. So let's say you were building a chatbot, right? Let's say you're building an AI agent that you're going to utilize with chat, which means that you can embed this into a website. You can click on a chat node, and this will be your first trigger. So same thing on the bottom, as you can see, it says when chat message received, meaning that this is going to be your trigger now. And on the bottom right here, as you can see, this chat appears next to the test workflow. And again, same thing on the left hand side, you can see the trigger button here, meaning that this is going to be your first node to trigger your workflow. On the right hand side, so this is where you can connect nodes to this particular node, right? So when you click on it, it's going to be the equivalent of same as going right here and clicking on it, meaning that once you click on this directly, this will now open up what happens next, right? That's what gives you and gives you flow that tells you, hey, add another node, because we've already had a trigger, so it already recognizes that. So now we can add additional triggers. So now we can do action in an app, meaning we can do something in an app with services like Google and all sorts of other native integration it already has with n8n. So these are going to be all of the apps that are already there, that already exist within n8n, so you can add any of it. So for example, let's say I want to add a Gmail node. I could either scroll and find that particular app that I'm looking for, or the fastest way to do this is just quickly search here, right? So if I search for Gmail, I can add that Gmail node, and now further it's going to give me options of, okay, what kind of a Gmail node do you want this to be? So it really gives you a more specific. So for example, if you want to send a message, you can click on send a message, and now as you can see, it will automatically open that node. So let's go ahead and get out of this. And as you can see right now, it is the next step that got attached to this previous trigger node. And I can move this around, and it shows you that this node is attached to this previous step. Okay. So the way to delete this, same thing, you can either come here, delete this node from here, or if you want to remove this connection, you can come and click on this remove connection right here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. Now, if I want to add, let's say, not an app, but I want to be able to add something to transform the data that I'm receiving from this chat message, for example, I can click on data transformation, and this will open up all of the data transformation nodes that are available within n8n. You can add code to it, you can add date and time, edit field. This is a very, very useful tool that we'll go into in detail in later videos, but you can modify, add, or remove different items that are coming in from your previous node. You can do different types of filtrations. You have splitting out of the data. You can filter a data based on a condition. You can merge, you can aggregate. So they're really, really great nodes that they already have when it comes to transforming your data or data transformation. You can have a flow. You can click on the flow node group, which basically gives you all of the popular nodes that are within that category. So you can loop over items, you can filter, you can merge items, and then obviously these other ones that are there as well. There's obviously the core and the advanced AI, and these are kind of the complicated ones, but for now we will not focus on this because, again, this is kind of an introductory video for now. And you can always add another trigger to this as well, but that's not really common But let's go ahead and actually add another node so that way I can introduce what the canvas is and what the inside of this node looks like. So let's click on data and transformation, or like I said, I can always just, if I already know which node I want to add, I can quickly search this node as well. So let's say I want to search for data. So once I do that, all of the nodes that are related to data will show up, and I can go ahead and select whatever I want. So let's say, so this customer data store is a n8n training node, which is great because this gives you some pre-populated or that data that's already inside it, so that way you can interact with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and click on get all people. And now, as you can see, it quickly added this to my trigger here. If I click on chat on the right hand side, on the bottom here, this will open up my chat window where then I can send some form of a data into that particular node. So let's say I want to send a data called, let's say, hello. So if I click on that, as you can see, now you will see that this node executed a chat message saying hello, and this outputted the node. So that's another really cool thing from the n8n's user interface, is that you can see the data that's coming in from different nodes just from the outside, and how much data is coming in, right? So from here, I'm saying, hey, one item is coming in from this chat node, is being outputted and it's being sent to my other node that's attached to it. And from this node, there's 5 items coming in. So let's go ahead and click on this node. The way to get inside a node is you can double click into it, and it will open up this node and what's inside of it. But before I do that, actually, let me go ahead and get rid of the data that's coming in here, just so we can start from scratch there. So if I want to remove the data that's got initiated from these different nodes, I can come in the bottom here, and if I click on this little delete button, it's going to delete the execution, or it says at the bottom, deletes the current execution data. So if I do that, now I'm back to blank, meaning nothing is being outputted from these nodes. So let's go ahead and double click on this. And here, this is the inside of a node, if you think about it that way. So in the middle here, this, I can move this thing around, meaning this is the node that I'm currently interacting with. The input, so this is going to be coming in from my previous node, and the output is going to be the output of the current node that I'm in, right? So my previous node, I can click on execute, and this is going to execute the previous node, which in our case is going to be our chat node. I can also click on this left hand side in the corner. If I go back here, I can see it here in the little corner here. I can click on it, and it will take me to the previous node as well, right? So you can always go back and forth between nodes when they're connected. But I can go ahead and double click on this. So these are the different parameters and the settings for this particular node. We don't have to worry about settings in most of the nodes. Most of the nodes, we're going to be interacting with the parameter. So the operation for this particular node is, because this is a training, n8n training node, it means that it's just going to output a list of people or a list of one person. So if if I select the get one person, and if I click on test step, this is going to output this result right here. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this on the left-hand side here. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, it says when chat message received, so that trigger, no fields, because there is nothing coming out of that input from my previous node. So on the right-hand corner here, and same thing, by the way, on the right and left, you can see that there's the schema view, table view, and JSON view. So let's go ahead and take a look on the right hand side, because we have some data on our output. So this is currently our table output, meaning that this is going to show all of the data that's being outputted from this particular node in a table format, right? So it's going to give you basically the columns and the rows with the names on the column names on top here. So I have one piece of data that came in, or one row of data that came in from this operation, or from the output of this node, and it's showing me in the table format. There's also the JSON view. So the JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. That's a JSON data format. You can see it in the JSON view, which it shows you in a really neat and cool way if you want to be able to interact with this from a JSON view. And then there's the schema view. So this is where you can see the output in the schema mode. And we'll talk about that in a little bit and why the schema node is extremely useful when you're connecting different nodes together. So let's say I want to output some more data. Let me go back to my table view here. I can click on get all people, and this limit says 5, but it's actually only 5. Even if you add more into this, it's only going to output 5 because that's kind of the default. So let's go ahead and test this. I'm going to click on test step, and as you can see now, I have this 5 piece of data that got outputted. And again, I can see this right now in the table view because it's showing me nice and neat the column names, the rows, and then the data that's inside this. And again, I can always click on the JSON. I will be able to see the JSON view here, and then also the schema as well. Okay, so if I want to get out of this node, I can always click here and come back and see my canvas view. And as you can see right now, it says 5 items are being outputted from this particular node. And same thing again, I can always double click on it and change this format. And let's say I want to delete this and start with my trigger node, and I want to send a piece of data through this. I'm going to go ahead and say again, hello. Now, if I double click on this node, now I can see on the left hand side here, this is the data that's coming in from the previous node. So I'm looking at it in the schema view, and I can always take a look at it from a table view or the JSON view as well. So as you can see, this is the input that's coming in, and this is the output that's coming in or coming out from this particular node. Okay, and the operation of the canvas or the node itself in n8n is always from left to right. So you're going to be moving from left to right. When you're building a workflow, it's always going to go from left to right, meaning that all of the inputs are going to be coming in from the left hand side and the output's going to be on the right hand side. All right, so this video has gone long enough. Let's go ahead and stop this for now. On the next video, I'm going to go ahead and continue on this particular workflow, and we'll add a few more nodes, and I'll show you how to drag or grab data from the input and do something with that data, and therefore have a output that's going to be related to the input data that will be coming in from the previous node from us. Okay, all right, see you in the next one. All right, welcome back. Make sure you watch the previous videos again, because otherwise this is not going to make a lot of sense, because it's kind of the continuation of this introduction series of n8n. Okay, so hopefully you watched the previous videos. So in the previous video, we kind of created our initial trigger node, which was a chat, and we also created this customer data store, which is the n8n training node. All right, so let's go ahead and continue in this workflow that we're building here. So let's go ahead and double click on our database here, this node. And as I said before, I'm going to click on test step, and this is going to output all this data that's coming in. So now let's get out of this. So now let's go ahead and actually start to manipulate the data that's coming in from this node and add connecting nodes to this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus button because I want to add a node that's going to be connected to this node, right? So you're going to click on the plus button. So now let's say I want to transform the data that's coming in from this node, and therefore I can either search for that particular node that I'm looking for, or come in here and click on data transformation, and you can see all of the different nodes that are available for me to be able to do something with that data that's coming in from here. So let's go ahead and add this edit fields, or the set that you did there, that n8n refers to. So I'm going to click on this, and as you can see, now if I back out, it is connected to my previous node automatically. Okay, so let's go ahead and double click this. One of the things we can do, and I always suggest doing it, is adding a name to each node. And this gives you really a good organization and gives you a good understanding especially when you're building really complex workflows. Naming your node is very, very useful because it will give you a good understanding of what node is doing what, right? So I'm going to go ahead, and for this one, I'm just going to say transform data. And if I just click on that and click on rename, it's going to change the name of this node to transform data now. If I back out, as you can see right here in the bottom, this is what it's going to show. And same thing, if I want to change the name for this, all I have to do is click on this, double click on it, double click on this again, and I'm just going to say test data. Click on rename, back out, and as you can see now, my node has really nice and clean name here. So let's go ahead, and as you can see right now, there's 5 items that are coming in as an output from this to this node. So let's go ahead and double click on this and try to do something with this data that's coming in. As you can see on the left hand side, I have my input, and this is going to be coming in on that previous video. I can always click on this, and this will take me to that next or the previous node. I can always go to my other node that's connected to this by clicking on the right hand console. Okay, so right now I have this as JSON view. I want to go ahead and try to utilize my schema view to be able to do something with this data that's coming in and manipulate it. One more quick thing in the JSON view right here, as you can see on the input, you have this little drop down, and this is going to show you all of the nodes that are connected to this node, and therefore you can have access to them from your JSON view here if you want to, let's say, grab something or grab data from your previous node here. So that's kind of a neat little drop down they have. But let's go back to our schema view here. All right, so this is all of the input, like I said, that's coming in from our previous node. You can see I have the name of my node and then all of the different items that are inside that node. And this is the previous node again that's shown to me. Just like on the JSON view, you can toggle between the nodes here. On the schema view, this will kind of list down all of the nodes on the left hand side. And I can always minimize or maximize this by clicking on the little arrow there. Okay, so now let's say I want to be able to do something with this particular data that's coming in. There's several modes that this particular node has. One mode is the manual mapping and another the JSON. So if you want to interact with JSON view, if you're familiar with code, then you can utilize the JSON view, but most people will be using the manual mapping here. So this is field to set. So as you can see right here, it says drag input fields here or add fields. So one of the great things about n8n is that you can actually drag different items inside of nodes and be able to interact with that data, manipulate that data, change that data, or add something to it. So let's go ahead and let's say I want to drag and filter this data or transform the data that's coming in just by the name and the email. So I'm going to go ahead and click on grab the name and just bring it down here. As soon as I do that, as you can see, when I dropped it here, this shows me these curly brackets and then the $ JSON.name. So this is what n8n refers to as expression. So anything that's inside these curly brackets are JavaScript code, right? So you can always click inside it, and if you are familiar with code, you can always do different things with it. But let's say if I want to add additional piece of code or additional piece of function, I can just click on just add dot, and then all of these different suggested functions are going to open up for me, where then I can manipulate this via code. But I'm not going to do that for now. So let's just go ahead and remove that dot from here. And I can always expand this. So if you have more data that you're putting in, you can click on this little button right here, and this will do an expand view, where then you can now interact with it in a maximize and with more space. And again, this is going to be very, very useful when you're building complex nodes and you're trying to manipulate data, or if you're adding prompts, then this view becomes really, really useful. And as you can see on the left hand side, so again, these are all the data that's coming in. This is my JSON, so I can always drag different stuff here, and this will show me the data in the JSON view, and then on the right hand side it will show me the result of what that looks like. And you can always manipulate it from here, but I'm going to go ahead and for now get rid of this, and let's go back to our node view here. So I can name this particular data that's coming in, right? So let's go ahead and say full name. Oops. And I can specify the type of data this is, right? So if it's a string, a number, a boolean, an array, or an object. Obviously this is going to be a string, so I'm going to leave it as string. And in the bottom right here, you can see that it shows the result of what this data looks like. And obviously this is going to be JGatsby, because that's what the name of this test data that's coming in from this side, right? Okay, and I can always add more stuff. So let's say I want to add the email here. Same thing, all I have to do is just grab the email, drop it here, specify the type, as I'll leave it as it is, and I can change the name to email. Okay, and let's go ahead and grab the country as well. So I'm going to grab the country. Same thing, I'll just rename it to country. You can always rename this to whatever you want. And let's go ahead and also maybe add this created, so that way you can see actually, you know what, let's grab the ID, so that way you can see that this is a number. So this time ID, and I'm going to change this to number. Okay, and on the bottom, like I said, you can see the result here. Okay, cool. So options, again, I don't have to worry about options for now because this is going to be a very, very simple transformation. So now, as you can see on the left-hand side, we have these 5 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of information that's coming in for a particular item. And we're transforming, we're only grabbing 4 pieces of information. So we're almost like filtering this data, right? Because we're only grabbing the name, the email, the country, and the ID. So now if I click on test step here, what this is going to do is this is going to output all of this data based on whatever criteria that we identified here. And here we basically said, hey, we want all of these data, meaning all the 5 items that are coming in from our previous input or our previous node. We want to output this, and I only want to see the full name, email, country, and ID. And as you can see, the column names now, instead of the name that was before, and like, okay, on table here. So here, this is a good view. Here, the ID, name, email, notes, country, created, all of this was coming in, and we manipulated this data using our set node, and the output is now only 4 columns, which we renamed it also to full name, email, country, and ID. So now we got all of this data that's coming in, we filtered it, or we grabbed only the data that we wanted to get, right? So this is going to be the output now from this node. And if I get out of this, as you can see right now, this came in, and these green tick marks, it just means that the execution was successful. So if there was any kind of error, you will see it in red here. Okay, so now there's 5 items just came from here, and 5 items coming out from here. However, this time the output of this is that instead of this 5, 6 columns that was in the input, we'll make the mistake here, let me get rid of this. Instead of the 6 column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6 columns that it was, we basically manipulated the data, and we now only have 4 columns. So we said that, you know what, we don't need the created time and the notes field. We just want to be able to grab these fields, and therefore we have now grabbed and changed the data that was coming in from the previous item. Okay, so let's go ahead and add and do something else with this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on plus button here. And now let's say I want to filter this, right? I only want to filter this for the certain criteria that I want to give, right? So same thing, you can click on data transformation, or you can just search here for filter, and all of the nodes that are related to filter, it will show up here. So I'm going to go ahead and you can click on filter here. With this will remove items matching a particular condition. You can have an if node, and you can have a switch node. So the switch node is that if you have several criteria that you're defining, then switch node is extremely useful, because this will output several types of data based on the filtration function that you have given. But let's say I want to use the if node. So I'm going to click on the if node. So now let's go back quickly just to see. Yep. So now it's connected. So now the if node spits out 2 outputs. It's going to spit out output or the data that's going to be coming out of this node as either true or false. So if the condition is being met for true, it will spit out all of the data from this area. And if it's not meeting it, it's going to send that data to the false node. So let's go ahead and double click on this. So now let's go ahead and say, hey, if this data that's coming in from my previous node, right, has a particular value, then I want to be able to output that. But if it doesn't, then I don't want that data to be shown in my output from this particular node. So for example, as you can see, the country here for this particular data point, it doesn't exist. So now I want to say, you know what, I don't want that data to come in here, or I don't want any fields that doesn't have a country to be able to be outputted in my node. So the way I could do that is the condition, as you can see, you have value 1, value 2, and whatever the condition you define in the middle here. So now let's go ahead and say, you know what, I only want to be able to check the data that exists, and if it does, send it to the true, and if it doesn't, send it to the false. So the way to do that is, instead of equal to, because it's a comparison operation, you have several operations that you have access to. You have the string operation. If it's a number, you do a number, or if it's date and time, depending on what type of data time. But for us particularly, this country, because we want to filter through the country column here, this is a string. So I'm going to click on string, and you have all these operations that are available to you through this if node. But for us, let's say I'm going to say, hey, if this particular set of data exists, then output it. So therefore, I'm going to click on exists. And as soon as you do that, this is going to now say, hey, okay, the data that's required for this particular action needs to be inputted here. So for the value, now I'm going to go to my schema view. Let me pull this out here, click on schema. So now I'm going to grab the country. And now I'm going to say same thing again. As soon as you grab these items, it's going to show you, the different suggested operations or functions that you can utilize within the JavaScript code to be able to manipulate this further. But for now, we're fine with that. So the output, as you can see, the result, it says US. So now I'm going to say, if the country exists, output this data. So let's go ahead and actually test that step. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and click on the table view here on the input, and we can take a look at this. All right, so from here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 items that were coming in. Now we filtered it. We said that if the country doesn't exist, output this data. And as you can see, now we have 4 items, because this item, this Zaphot Bibelbrox, it doesn't have country, therefore it did not output that. So now if we get out of this, now you can see that there's data that came in, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's data that came in from true, and then also the data that came in from false. So if I just add something else to it, we don't have to add anything to it. I'm just gonna quickly show you that this will further show, and I can move this around here. And let's go ahead and add one more. Move this around here. So now you have these conditions that are being split. This data is being split. So now let's go ahead and test the step again. If I click on play, now you can see that 5 items came from this node, 5 items came from this node, and now you have 4 items that went to our true statement or our true route, and 1 item that went to our false route. So this is how you can manipulate and test or change the data that's coming in based on these different nodes that come in. And now I can do something with the data that's coming out from this node right here. I can add further nodes to it to be able to change it. And same thing with here. This will be completely separate, right? Because now I can do different things with the data that's coming in from the output of this particular node. Okay? All right, well, hopefully that gave you kind of a further understanding of how these nodes work and how you can manipulate the data based on the different filters you want to apply, or the different nodes that you can add to these things that you can further manipulate and change. All right, so that's good for now. I'm going to go ahead and I'll also do another introductory video, and that's going to be the last of this series, because then you will have had a good understanding of how all these things fit together, and then you can go ahead and start to take a look at the rest of the classroom items that are there, so that way you can get started on building your workflows and your AI agents and complex AI agents and workflow journey. All right, I'll see you on the next one.